We're ready to start Chapter 5, Section 2. We're going to be adding and subtracting decimals. These are the rules. This is very, very simple, and you've done this many, many times when you've added money. You're going to write the numbers in a column with the decimal points and the corresponding place values lined up. If you want to, you may insert additional zeros as placeholders after the last digit to the right of the decimal point if you want to. If that helps you line things up better, then go ahead. You don't need to. In a whole number in which no decimal point appears, place the decimal point after the ones place. This is probably the trickiest thing, probably the only tricky thing about adding. You want to be sure that if you have a whole number, in the problem, you'll see a 5. You won't see a decimal point, but we know that the decimal point goes after the 5. That's 5 ones, and that's where the decimal point goes. So this is very, very important. Then you're going to add or subtract the digits in columns from right to left as you would whole numbers. And the decimal point in the answer should be lined up with the decimal point from the original number. So that's pretty easy. So here we go. Let's add. Here's our problem. I'm going to write this, stack them on top of each other. And I'm going to line up the decimal points. And if you want to, you can fill that 0 in. That's not necessary here. Later on, we're going to see in subtraction that sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. And now we're just going to add. 6, 15, carry your 1, 8. And here's the decimal point, so that's where it goes in the answer. 13, carry your 1, 3. So there's our answer. This next one, we have 184 and 218 thousandths, and we're going to add 14 and 12 hundredths. Notice that we're lining up the decimal points. That has the hundreds place lined up, tens, ones, tenths, hundredths, thousands, and if you want to, you can add this. We generally don't add them over here. You can if you want. It doesn't make any difference. Now we're going to add 8, 3, 3. Decimal point goes right under here. 8, 9, 1. Now this one we have a whole number right here. And remember from the last page, we don't see the decimal point, but we know that it is right here. It follows the ones place. So when we line these up, we're going to line the decimal points up, which lines up the places. And then we're going to write the third number. Now, in this one, as you can see, it might be helpful to do that. That's up to you. I probably wouldn't do it myself if I were doing it, but if you have trouble seeing the columns, then for heaven's sakes, put the zeros in. Now I'm going to add up, and the decimal point's going to go right here. This is 6, this is 0, this is 10, carry your 1, 12, and 1 would be 13, 6, 8. This is the tricky part, being sure that you know where to put the whole number. Let's look at the next one. Oh, the next one has another whole number in it, and we know where the decimal point goes, so we're going to line all the decimal points up so that the places will be lined up. When we do whole numbers, we know that we always justify on the right. That's because that's where the decimal points would be. So here we line up the decimal points So these other places would be lined up. And if you know, you can do this. That's up to you. Now we're going to add. We'll add this place. We'll add the next place. We'll add the next place. We'll add the next place. Now we're at the tenths. 9 and 3 would be 12. Carry your 1. We have 10, 13. Carry your 1 would be 3. This next one, do you see that we have a whole number? And we know where the decimal point goes. This is the only hard part about addition. So we'll write our first number. We'll write our second number under it. We're lining up the decimal points. And our third one goes there. We're not justifying to the right. We are lining up the decimal points. And again, if you want to, you can put a bunch of zeros in there. That's up to you. 2, 4, 7, 3, 10. Here's the decimal point. We're carrying a 1. We've got 8, 9, 10, 11. Carry your 1. There you go. Now we're ready to subtract. Subtraction involves a couple of things. One of them is the borrowing aspect of it. Because decimals are 10 for 1, there are 10 tenths in 1, there's 10 hundredths in a tenth, and so forth. We can use that same thinking that we do when we borrow with whole numbers. If we borrow 1, we get 10. If we borrow 1, we get 10. That's why we put that little 1 there. Now, we want to be sure, this is the thing to remember, we want to be sure to fill in the zeros on the top number. On the top number. On the bottom number, you can do it if you want. It's like addition. That's up to you. But the top number, you need to fill in that 0 because you'll probably have to borrow for that place. And you need to keep in mind that there's a 0 up there. So we'll line up the decimal points. And this is optional. If you want to put that in there, that's great. Now we're going to subtract. We'll start over here. 8, 0, 3, 2. The decimal point goes here. And of course, that's 0. Now, when we look at this one, do you see that we have a whole number? So we know where the decimal point goes. And this is a case in which we have some blanks up here on the top. And we need to fill the zeros in because this is not going to be 3. This is going to actually be 7. Because this is nothing minus 3, which means we're going to borrow. When the bottom number is bigger than the top, we have to borrow. We can't get any next door, so we're going to go to the ones place. We're going to borrow a 1, and we get 10 tenths. We're going to borrow a tenth from the 10. That leaves us 9, and we're going to get 10 hundredths. So 10 minus 3 is 7. 9 minus 6 is 3. Here's our decimal point. Then we've got 8 minus 9, and that won't work. So we're going to have to go next door, borrow 1 from the 3, and we get 10 more to go with the 9 that we had. So we have, or the 8 that we had, I'm sorry. 18 minus 9 would be 9. 2 minus 2 would be 0. 1 minus nothing would be 1. Now, you can add these two together, and your answer should be this top number. 0, 0, carry your 1, 19, carry your 1, 3, 1. So that does work. Okay, let's look at this next one. 192 and 4/10 minus 89 and 387. And again, we need to fill in the zeros on that top number because we are going to have to borrow. We can't do this, and even if there were nothing up here, we can't do it. Nothing. If you don't have any money and you spend $7, you're in trouble. So we're going to have to borrow because the bottom number is bigger than the top. We can't get it next door. We'll borrow one of these. We get 10 of the hundredths. We'll borrow one of those. We get 10 of these. So now we're ready to subtract. 10 minus 7 would be 3, not 7. 9 minus 8 would be 1. 3 minus 3 would be 0. Here's our decimal point. We can't subtract here, so we're going to borrow. We get 10 ones plus the 2 that we already had. So now we have 12 minus 9 would be 3. 8 minus 8 would be 0. 1 minus nothing would be 1. And again, you can add these two bottoms together, and you should come up with what you started with, 192 and 4/10. You'd have 0, carrier 1, 0, carrier 1, 4, 12, carrier 1, 9, 1. Okay, we've got another one here. 3 and 97 hundredths minus 1,584, 10 thousandths? And again, we have some spaces here at the top. We do need to fill them in because this is not going to be 4. It's going to be 6, isn't it? So we need to borrow for this. We can't get anything here, so we're going to borrow one from the 7 and get 10 thousandths. We'll borrow one there, and we'll get 10 thousandths. So 10 minus 4 is 6. 9 minus 8 is 1. 6 minus 5 is 1. 9 minus 1 is 8. Here's the decimal point. 3 minus nothing is 3. And again, we can add these two together, and we should come up with what we started with. Now, when we have signed numbers, we're going to do the same thing. If you have subtraction, you're going to change it to addition. That way, then you can move them any way you want. The top number can become the bottom number, and the bottom number can be the top number. So we're going to add the opposite of the second number. Instead of 7 minus 8, instead of subtraction, we're going to add the opposite of this positive number. So we're going to have one more negative, which you know that was -1. In addition, which number has the greater absolute value? You need to take a look. That means without the sign. So do we have more positives or do we have more negatives? So we're really comparing. And then how much greater? And to find out how much greater this, then we're going to find the difference, or we're going to subtract. We're going to find the difference. We're going to find how much more. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We're adding, so that's good. So we have 45 and 8/10 and 23 and 9/10 negatives. So do we have more positives or negatives? We have more positives. So I know my answer is going to be positive, and I'm going to find the difference. I'm going to subtract their absolute values. So I can't do this because the bottom number is too big, so I'm going to borrow and get 10. 18 minus 9 would be 9. Here's the decimal point. 4 minus 3 would be 1. 4 minus 2 would be 2. So the answer is a positive 21 and 9/10. When we look at this one, we have subtraction. So instead of subtracting, since we have sign numbers, instead of subtracting this positive, I'm going to add a negative. So I have a bunch of negatives. So I know my answer is going to be negative, and I'm just going to add their absolute values. I'm going to add and see how many negatives that I have. So I have 6, 17, carrier 1 would be 11, carrier 1 would be 1. The decimal point goes right there. Now this one we have addition and we have subtraction. So I'm going to change this subtraction to adding the opposite. So I'm really going to have this plus this. Instead of subtracting a negative, I'm going to add a positive. So really I have 3 positive numbers to add together. I'm going to line those up so the decimal points line up. So they're all positive. I'm going to fill that 0 in just to help it look more orderly. Now I'm going to add 10, 10, 17, here's the decimal point, carrier 1, 11, 12, 14, carrier 1, 5. And this next one, of course, we have subtraction. So instead of subtracting, I'm going to add the opposite. So instead of subtracting a negative, I'm going to add a positive. So now I have a negative and a positive. Which do I have more of? I have 3, a little more than 3 negatives, and a little more than 6 positives. So I have more positives, so I know my answer is going to be positive. So now I have to find out how many more positives. So I'm just going to find the difference. And I'll fill in with zeros because I'm going to subtract. I'm going to find the difference. I don't need to borrow. This is good. 4, 7, 0. I do need to borrow here because the bottom number is bigger. 12 minus 7 would be 5. Here goes the decimal point. 5 minus 3 would be 2. And we said this was going to be positive because there's more positives than there are negatives. So now we're going to have some algebraic expressions that have some variables in them. And we know that all we're going to do is combine the coefficients, the number part. So when we look at this, we do have like terms. They're both x terms. So all we have to do is combine this and this. And that's how many x's we will have. So, do we have more positives or negatives? Looks like positives. How many more? Well, I'm just going to subtract those 2 numbers. 3, here's the decimal point. I have that many more positives, so my answer is going to be 6 3/10 x. Oh my goodness, let's look at this. We've got a couple of x terms that we can combine and a couple of y terms that we can combine. So we're going to have so many x's plus so many y's or minus so many y's. We'll see. Okay, when we look at the x's, we have this many plus this many. So we're just adding those numbers together. If you want to do that, you can. So we have 2, 9, 6, decimal point, 0. That's how many x's. And now let's look at the y's. Oh, instead of subtracting a positive, we're going to add negative 2100ths y. So when we look at these two, do we have more positive or more negative? It looks like positive, doesn't it? So we're going to find the difference, and it's going to be positive. So we'll have to put the one with this bigger absolute value up on top. And find the difference. If you want to fill that in, you can. It doesn't matter, because 3 minus 0 is the same as 3 minus nothing. If this 3 were on the bottom, we would have to put that on the top because we would need to borrow for it. 3, 8, 3. And we said that we had more positive. So this is our answer right here. We've combined the like terms. Let's look at this one. They're both x terms. We're subtracting, which we could just subtract, or instead of subtracting this, we're adding negative. So we have more positives. So we're going to subtract, find the difference. So I'm going to subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. I need to borrow here because the bottom number's bigger. 8, 11. I get 10 for this one. So 11 minus 3 would be 8. Here's the decimal point. And 8 minus 2 would be 6. So that's how many x's that we have. Okay, we've got one more. It looks like we've got some w's. And then we've got some x's. Those are like terms. So let's do the w's first. We have this plus this. So that's how many w's we have. Now let's do the x's. We've got subtract. So we know this is going to be, instead of subtracting a positive, we're going to add negative. So do we have more positive or do we have more negatives? It looks like we have more negatives. If we were to line these up on top of each other, same, and this is different. This is the bigger one, and this one is the negative. Okay, so this is the bigger one, so this has got to go on the top of our subtraction. This is going to go on the bottom. We're lining up the decimal points. I do have to fill in here because 6 is on the bottom. So I'm going to have to borrow, so I'm going to borrow one of these, and I get 10 of those. 10 minus 6 would be 4. 1 minus 4 won't work, so I'll borrow 1 here, and I get 10 more. So now I have 11 minus 4 would be 7. 1 minus 0 would be 0. And we said it's going to be negative. So we can either have plus negative 74 thousandths, or we can just say minus that number. So this is our answer right here.